Hello there, and welcome to Play the Game with Steve. Villains Beyond, Episode 5. The Green Goblin! Did you miss us? No, I did not. Now the Green Goblin is back in full crazy mode, and we are going to explore this unique design for a villain that we have already seen. We're going to take a look at his stats and the different stage numbers. We'll clarify if there's any rules, ambiguities that we might find. We're going to take a look at all of his villain cards and how his plan and his design is going to interact with our heroes. And then finally, we're going to take a look at how we can modify this scenario's experience to either increase more thematic, more difficult, or just for our overall enjoyment of this. So all this and more in this episode of Villains Beyond, the Green Goblin. All right, the Green Goblin has 3 stages, and he is a goblin trait on all 3 stages. On stage 1, he has a scheme of 1, an attack of 2. He's got 16 health per player, and he has a force response. After Green Goblin attacks and damages you, you place 1 threat on the main scheme. All right, stage 2 is where it really gets exciting here. It's just basically how angry he gets and how much he wants to throw at you. So he's got 18 hit per player, 2 scheme, 2 attack. He still has that force response after he attacks and damages you. He places a threat on the main, but when he gets revealed, so either when you're starting on expert mode or if you're going to stage 2 from a standard, he is going to deal you those 2 encounter cards. So you got to either finish him off before he reveals them or be prepared to do a massive cleanup. On stage 3, he's got 20 health per player. He has a scheme of 2 and attack of 3, but the force response has increased because now when he attacks and damages you, it's 2 threat on the main scheme, excuse me. And when he is revealed, it is 3 encounter cards. So to have played him multiple times, you want to try to be able to keep him on his stage 2 until he has like 1 hit point, and then you want to flip him and try not to deal with those 3 encounter cards. Now, if that's possible, you're in a good spot. But if not, be prepared for a massive cleanup, especially if you're playing in a multiplayer game. At 4 players, that is 12 encounter cards, and plus the 3 extra ones for the turn. So if you have to deal with the turn, that's 15 encounter cards in 1 turn. And that just makes it super, super messy. But at least you see like the difference between the stages. All right, now let's go check out his main scheme. All right, Unleashing the Mutagen is his game plan. And he has a setup ability that you put a Goblin Thrall minion into play, engage with each player. All right, so then we just flip to stage 1B. It starts at 2 per player. It goes up by 1 per player. It has a cap of 7 per player. And it says when completed in player order, each player not engaged with a minion, a goblin minion, have to discard the top 3 cards. And the first goblin that is discarded that way is going to be put into play engaged with them. And then we go on to the Mutagen Cloud, which just says when revealed, advance to stage 2B. You can read the little text. And this one starts at 4 per player, and it goes up by plus X. Now, X is equal to the number of goblin enemies, including the Green Goblin in play, and it goes to a maximum of 11. And if the stage is completed, the players will lose the game, which means he has infected the entire city. So the important takeaway on this here is keep control of those goblin minions or you will lose. All right, let's go take a look at his signature cards. So Green Goblin has an army of thralls that he has already infected, and he has 6 of them, 6 goblin thralls. They have guard, so that means they're going to be protecting him. Only 1 scheme, 1 attack. But again, they as a boost card, they will come into play engaged with you. So you got to try to get these out as soon as possible. Then there's his foot soldiers, or the goblin soldiers. And he's got 4 copies of these guys. And these are 5 health minions with 1 scheme, 1 attack. When defeated, deal a damage to the engaged player. And then as a boost effect, they come into play engaged with you. So that is 10 goblins that have a chance as he's attacking to just come into the field. So that's pretty dangerous. Then he's got 2 mini bosses. The first one is Monster. He is an elite goblin with 1 scheme, 3 attacks, 6 health. When revealed, you are stunned, and if you're already stunned, you take 2 damage. And as a boost card, after this activation ends, you shuffle this card into the encounter deck. So he's got a boost of 2, and he shuffles back in. And then we have the Goblin Knight with 2 scheme, 2 attack, and Elite Goblin as well with 7 health. He's got a force response. After the Goblin Knight attacks you, you discard a card from the encounter deck, and if that card is a Goblin minion, you put it into play engaged with you. And as a boost card, after this activation ends, you shuffle this guy into the deck again. So as you can see, his 2 mini bosses, they're coming out whether you want it or not. So they're going to be coming in as minions. So there you go. So we have the minions that are coming in for sure as boost, and then we have his mini bosses that are coming in. Then he's got a few attachments. He's got his glider, which gives him that +1 attack, and you can spend 2 lightning to get rid of it. All right. He also has some pumpkin bombs that you attach to him, and then that doesn't give him plus attack, but after he attacks you, you discard the pumpkin bombs and take 2 indirect damage. But you could always spend 2 physicals to discard this card. Oh, 1 second. And then finally, he's got the Hysteria, and this is probably the nastiest one. It says, when Green Goblin schemes or attacks, you give him an additional boost card for that activation. And you do need to spend 2 mental resources to get rid of this card, and this has to leave as soon as possible. That's it for his attachment. He has a bunch of side schemes. Again, as you can see, it's all about, you know, the minions and then him getting more powerful. So Goblin Nation definitely falls into that. It says each enemy that is a goblin, including the boss, gets +1 attack. And this also comes out as a boost card. So you cannot really escape it. So you'd rather get these as encounter cards. And then he's got overruns. So as we can see, the goblins are populating the city. So this is 1 per player, double acceleration, so that's pretty harsh. And then when defeated in player order, each player must discard 2 cards from the encounter deck and put each goblin minion they discarded into play engaged with them. So there's no bypassing that. So even if you're reshuffling the deck, you keep going. So you have to discard 2 cards per player. Even if you deck out, you're gonna get an acceleration token, and you're gonna come and redo that. So that's happening. There's 2 more of these. And then there's the Goblin Reinforcements, and this one's pretty harsh too. It's 2, but you add, when revealed, place 1 additional threat here for each Goblin minion in play. So if you're not taking care of business and there's a bunch of Goblin minions in play, this card's gonna get brutal. So it's an extra encounter card as well. So we already got a whole bunch of encounter cards when these goes from stage 2 to stage 3. So make sure that Goblin Reinforcement is not there. Then he's got a few treacheries, Wicked Ambitions, and this one, discard X cards from the encounter deck where X is equal to double the villain's stage number. So this stage 1 will be 1 card, 4 cards, and then 6 cards. Each time a goblin minion is discarded this way, you can choose to either take 3 damage or put that minion into play engaged with you. Now here's a good thing: if you have a tough status card, you can prevent one of those goblins coming in for free. So he's got 2 of those. He has the dreaded I See You, which is an extra activation. When revealed, Goblin attacks you, and if you are in alter ego form, do not give the villain a boost card for this activation. So he's going to attack you regardless, even if you're in alter ego. So he's going to come at you. And then the boost icon, this card gets +1 boost icon if at least 1 goblin minion is engaged with you. So it's either a boost to 1 or a boost to 2. Then he's got the Overconfidence, which has 2 things. In alter ego, he's going to scheme. And if there's 3 threats that are placed by this activation, it's going to gain Surge, Brutal, and Overconfidence. In hero form, he's going to attack you. And if 3 damage was dealt by this activation, this card's going to gain Surge. Now remember, if you are blocking with an ally, the damage is still dealt. So you'll have to use your defense to try to mitigate as much as that as possible, not to get an extra card. And then finally, one of the deadliest cards in the game, it is Death from Above. It has its name and its purpose. When revealed in alter ego, he's going to scheme with +X scheme, where X is equal to the stage number. So if he's on stage 3, he's getting a +3 to his scheme. In hero form, it's going to the same thing. He's going to attack you with a +X, where X is equal to the villain's stage number as well. So that is pretty deadly. I've lost so many games with Death from Above in Alter Ego, you're just like, oh, come on, I was one turn away. All right, so that is it for his signature cards. All right, now let's take a look at some of the modular sets we can include to increase the thematics. All right, if we're going for thematics, I really like the City in Chaos, the one with the Rhino modular set, just because I like the name of the modular set. And it's also the side scheme that says Panic in the Streets. This one's brutal in a multiplayer game. You treat all your locations and your persona supports as if they were blank. So no Avengers Towers, no helicarriers, no more, all of that stuff, no more mansions, all that stuff is gone. So that's pretty good. It's only 5 to get rid of, so it's not that much of a pain in a multiplayer deck, but it's still like, if you're playing solo, 5 threat is still nasty. Then you have the Now or Nevers, that you have to exhaust your character and spend a resource, but if you don't, or if you can't exhaust a character, you'll have to place an acceleration on the main scheme, and that could be really deadly, especially with the amount of threat that can go up on a turn. And then obviously you got the calling in favors to go get Rhino. All in all, difficulty-wise, it's not super difficult. I would say probably a 4 or a 5 on the difficulty range that it would add. So it's not adding a lot of difficulty, but it's still pretty interesting to me. Thematically, I think it makes sense with the city all being in chaos. Speaking of a city in chaos, we have the State of Emergency from, that was from Sinister Motives pack, and this one is from the Hood scenario pack. It's the one with the Offshore Inferno that has to discard the lowest cost card you control. Disaster at the Docks, where you take 3 indirect damage. The Hot Pursuit that discards until you find a minion. And the Fiery Heist that you discard the highest cost card from your hand. And obviously the Citywide Crisis, which triggers all of these side schemes when revealed. But not only those, but they also combo well with the Goblin Reinforcements. So if that one's in play, you would place additional threat here for each Goblin. So if there's like 3 Goblins in play and you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting rid of this turn. Oh no, when revealed, it's adding more threat on these ones. So I thought it was a nice little combination here for the Green Goblin and the Citywide Crisis. It's just adding a lot more side schemes, so these are always a little bit more of a pain to get rid of. And it's a per player side scheme, so I would say difficulty probably a 7.5. And finally, for thematics, I really like the Band of Badoon, just because it's all green minions. So you have the assassins that are green and that give overkill and piercing and range to the goblin's attack if it comes in as a boost card. I think that can be really, really deadly on a Death from Above. So it combos well on difficulty. The grunts, so if you're taking care of the goblins, but now boom, now you get grunts that give you extra encounter cards if they come in as well. So it's just more minions that can come into play. You get the warlords that have the overkill. And then if it's an activation, it gets +2 for that activation. And then you got the sentries. You give the villain a tough status card. And if he's already tough, it gets +2 boost for the activation. And then finally you have the lieutenant, who's got patrol, and then if the activation is a scheme, it gets +2 for that activation. So all in all, this is not, it's just more minions, but it's more minions that have these really fun boost abilities that can make it a lot more dangerous when Green Goblin comes at you. So all in all, I would say this one's probably a 7.5, 8 on the difficulty range. So it's a nice little upgrade there. All right, so if we're gonna increase that difficulty, it's not too hard. All we have to go is look in the Sinister Motives box and look for the Goblin Gear modular set. It's only 6 cards, but Limitless Supply is one of the side schemes that is part of that. It's an extra encounter card and says that all the tech attachments gain surge. Luckily for us, the attachments in Green Goblin's deck are not tech attachments, so at least it's a break for that. But then we have the little bombs that he comes with, the concussive bombs, smoke bombs, and incendiary bombs, and obviously the deadly advanced glider. Those all would surge. And then again, if you don't like the glider, obviously the remote navigation that goes and gets it makes this modular set really, really interesting, especially if you get that glider or remote navigation on turn 1. it could be the end of you pretty fast. So difficulty wise, I would say it's up there in a 7. Not the worst if it's not, you know, on your first one. So that's why it's a 7 and not a 9. But with this Green Goblin, since there's a lot of minions, it's not that bad. All right, so then the next one is from, again, Sinister Motives, is the Guerrilla Tactics. I just love this one. We got the 2 life-size decoys that come into play, kind of like the Goblins, and prevent you from removing threat from the side scheme, so that can be brutal. You have these 3 side schemes. Teamwork makes the dream work. That gives each enemy +1 scheme and attack, so that can be deadly, especially if you're playing solo and you have a bunch of minion problems. That can be deadly. You got the coordinated effort that all the enemies gain an acceleration icon. Again, with a big heavy minion scenario like this, super dangerous. And then you got the hidden in shadows, which is just game over probably, because every enemy gains a hazard icon. That's including the boss. So yeah, that just becomes just game over. If there's like 3-4 enemies, like there's no way you survive 4-5 encounter cards a turn. And then you have the from every direction. In expert mode, it does gain surge, and then you place a threat for each enemy in play. So again, if you are on the second stage of the villain, the mutagen cloud, it can just spill immediate death. So this one I would say is 100%. I like an 8.5, maybe even a 9 on the difficulty stage. It's pretty rough. And then finally, again, from the Sinister Motives, it's all that Goblin stuff that we've seen. It's all the Osborne tech here, that all of those attachments have surge. Those can just be just deadly. We already seen them a couple times already, but difficulty wise, if you're adding these, they're all triple boost icons, and they all have some super nasty effects. Again, when you're playing on expert mode and dealing yourself 2 encounter cards each per player, this could dispel certain doom. All right, so that's it for difficulty wise. Obviously, I'm not going to go through those because we've seen them before. And then just for the lulls. All right, so when I want to have some fun, I do add the Personal Nightmare. I just love personal, the Fool's Paradise side scheme. If I can see that often, I'm happy. And then you got obviously the Weakness from Within. You got the Evil Doppelgangers, the Panic Induced that prevents you from triggering your bold specific identity stuff. So that could be brutal. And then you got the Deepest Fears, which is you're just discarding a few cards, and which is nothing bad, but it's a fun modular set that I like to include in this one. Just it kind of tones it down a little bit, but still remains a little bit on flavor. So for me, I like it a lot. It's probably a difficulty, probably around 5. It's not super hard, but it's fun. What I do like though, with Green Goblin, since he's got this army of goblins, I like to add a second army. I like the Kree Militants. Obviously the armor goes on him. It reduces his damage he takes, but the privates to give him overkill on his attacks, the commandos to give him piercing on his attacks, and then +3 boosts with the lieutenants, and they're all like super big minions, 5, 6, and 7 health. So they're definitely an upgrade to the little goblin thralls and that we're used to seeing. So I like that for just for the lulls. And then finally, I also enjoy another minion heavy. It's the one from the what's her name again? Spider Pig, the Inheritors. With all the spider people. I just like it. I love the minions in this one. The Morlun, the Bricks, Deimos, Bora, Verna, Solus, Karn, and Genix. So these are like big minions there that have, they probably won't trigger unless you're playing with a Web Warrior character. They're when revealed effects, but I still enjoy them. I think they're pretty fun. It's a fun modular set to include with this. It's just different. You know, it's not just goblins coming at you. It's like this whole other faction that's trying to hunt spider people. So I like it. Like I said, if there's other things that you would have suggested, you could definitely let me know in the comments. All right, finally, the top cards to include in this modular set. All right, so there's a few cards that I 100% recommend. In Aggression, there's 2. I think this is the best card in the game for this scenario. Into the Fray, it controls minions, and it also removes threat from the main scheme. There is no crisis icons in his deck, so this is always going to be a go. So don't be shy if you're playing aggression to include 2 or 3 copies of this. This will go a long way to help you keep control on the main scheme while taking care of those goblins. Same thing for Relentless Assault. The second suggestion for aggression helps you out with the overkill, still deals damage to the boss, so can't go wrong here. In protection, I recommend Hard Knocks. Again, 4 damage most of the time is enough to kill those thralls. You're just 1 damage shy away from those, what's they're called there, the soldiers. But being able to get the that tough status card there, really, really important. So it controls you, so he doesn't damage you and place more threat. In Justice, again, we have Stealth Strike. That's going to help you a lot as well. That's the 4 damage. You defeat that thrall. You also remove 2 threat from a main scheme or from any scheme. So again, super powerful. Damage and threat removal, both in one, just like the Into the Fray, probably the best cards. And then target acquired. If you don't want to see those goblin soldiers come in, this is a 1 resource. It's 5 damage prevention, actually 6 damage, because if you can let the thralls come in, but you just get rid of you keep them for the soldiers when they want to come in, and that's just saving you to 5 damage to just get rid of. So pretty good. So there you go. I think this video is going to be pretty much it, because again, there's not too many complicated mechanics in this scenario. It was pretty straightforward. It's just a big rumble. Just survive the first turn, which is on expert is just survive the first turn, and on standard is survive the turn you flip them, and then you're good. And after that, it's a pretty fun scenario. Again, one of my favorite scenarios in the game still to date. It came out early, and it's just fun. It comes at you from different angles, but not too abruptly. But it's not true. You can always lose turn 1. I've lost a couple games on turn 1 against him. Just he attacks you 3 times. You're like, yeah, well, I'm done. And there's nothing you can do about it. So no, Green Goblin mutagen formula, definitely a great scenario. Definitely, if you don't have that scenario pack, go and fetch it. It's super fun. It got 3 modular sets too. It's got the Scorpion, the what's his name? I talked to him about last week. Scorpion, Electro, and Tombstone. There you go. So it's got those 3 modulars in there, which are fun modulars. They're really cool. So guys, that's about it. That wraps it up for me. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. If you like that this video was a lot shorter than the half hours, I know I appreciate that. My wife appreciates it. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. We'll see you next week. I think I'm doing the Wrecking Crew next, so that one's going to be interesting. And this one's going to be, the Wrecking Crew is going to be totally off the chains, because it is not a normally modifiable scenario. So we'll see how I will propose some few things for that one next week. So be excited for that. Anyway, leave your comments down below. Like, subscribe if you haven't done it yet, and we'll see you next time. Keep on just enjoy yourself and play the game. Ciao, ciao.